Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to BikeSocial. I'm Michael Mann, and you join me here in Manchester, where Harley-Davidson have invited us to ride their brand new Sportster S. And in this video, we're going to be looking at all the details of the brand new bike, including that incredible new Revolution Max 1250T engine, and then we'll take it out for a ride. Here we go. So with this 2021 edition Sportster, there's no air-cooled pushrod V-twins, there's no twin-shock chassis, no lashings of chrome or traditional cruiser styling. No, this is the production version of what they call the high-performance custom concept they showed about 3 years ago, at the same time as the Pan America. There's also that Bronx Street Fighter, but that idea's been canned. So yeah, same Revolution Max 1250 engine as you see in the Pan America, but this is the T version, so T for torque, and that means that it's been tuned accordingly. 1252cc, double overhead cam, water-cooled 60-degree V-twin, and it's slightly offset by about 30 degrees. So it's supposed to give it a bit more of an L-twin, a 45-degree twin cylinder layout sort of feel. Peak power is down from the Pan Am. The Pan America is 150, this is 121, and it's at peaks at 7,500. Although the engine runs to about a 9,500 redline. Peak torque, because this engine's all about the torque, is 92.2 foot-pounds, which is about 125 newton meters, and that's massive. That's like Panigale V4 territory. So new cylinder heads, smaller valves, smaller ports, redesigned combustion chamber, and it's all about airflow through the engine, and that of course increases or enhances mid-range torque and really acceleration off the bottom end. So it's said to have 10% more grunt between 3,000 and 6,000 RPM, which of course is the place where you'll use it. Variable valve timing, but the phasing's been changed. Cam profiles, intake stacks, airbox volume, and it's only, and in inverted commas only, 228 kilos ready to ride. That's called the Daymaker LED headlight, and it's got the same switchgear as you'd find on the Pan America, and it's the same 4-inch display. It's all Bluetooth ready, so you can hook your phone up to it. You can see where the front of the frame and the headstock is mounted to the front cylinder head. So they use the engine as a stress member, which reduces weight. Transmission is conventional 6-speed, of course it's belt drive, keeps maintenance down. You've got your remote preload adjuster there, look. You've got 3 riding modes, you've got Sport, Rain and Road, and then there's 2 preset modes as well, so you can customise all of the individual settings, so you get things like ABS, traction control, throttle response. So it's a Showa 43mm upside down forks, and then you've got a Showa piggyback monoshock right here. And there, well hidden. 16-inch rear wheel, 17-inch front wheel. Let's have a look at this one instead. It's a bit more light on this one. These are called Dunlop GT503s, and they've been developed in conjunction with Harley specifically for this model. That's a 180 section rear, look. 320mm single disc on the front, 260 single disc on the rear, 755mm seat height. And obviously, being a Harley, you've got loads of accessories as well. So including seat and pillion seat even, if you find someone brave enough. And of course there's upswept, high level twin exhausts. The idea comes from the flat track world. Price, I hear you asking, $13,999. And this is the vivid black. There's also stone washed white pearl, which is that one in the background, or midnight crimson. And the latter two are an extra £250. PCP wise, you're looking at probably a 3-year deal. Put down a £3,000 deposit and it's about £150 a month. There you are. What do you say? Shall we go and ride it? I reckon so. Welcome to the ride. Well, technically part 2 of the ride, because this is the second half. We are clearly out of Manchester, as you can tell. And this is the Peak District. And you join me on board the 2021 Harley-Davidson Sportster S, as you know already, because I've already told you that bit. I've just swapped motorcycles, so I'm now on the bike with the mid-mount foot pegs, which I quite like. I've been riding around all morning. I say all morning, I've well, about 45 miles, I think, 45 miles through a bit of Manchester traffic, through the city and out into the Peak District. And yes, so I've been riding the one with the feet forward position, which is the standard position. And I gotta say, after about 20 miles, I was keen for a bit of a leg stretch. Just a bit like riding a bobber. All that weight just sits right on the bottom of your coccyx. And well, with this, let me see if I can show you. Can you see down there? With that position there, that's promotes a bit more of an upright sitting position. So you've got a bit more weight going down into your feet, into the foot pegs. However, it does mean that when you come to a stop, you've got to remember what you've got the mid-mount pegs and you've not got the forward ones. All of a sudden you start clicking your shins. So the view you can see is very similar to the Pan America, certainly in terms of switch gear layout. So there's your ignition, starter, mode switch, and then you've got dials for your to play around with your music. So if you've got your Bluetooth headset and you've got the Harley-Davidson app plugged in, then you can see your turn-by-turn navigation, and you can see the your phone messages and your music. Muck about with the music. Do it. Now, where were we? Right, left-hand side, got your flashers, your light main beam, heated grips, which are an optional extra, cruise control, up and down, so you got on, off, and then you got up and down, reset, set. Underneath, horn, as you just heard, tiny little button right underneath there, which is easy to get if you're going for the indicator. Can you see that here? Look, and the indicator switch itself there's a firm click left or right, so you know you're going to be indicating, but that reset where you push it in, it's ever so soft, and you don't know whether you pushed it in or not, and then you were indicating the wrong way anyway, or beeping someone. Thankfully they auto reset anyway, so it's not too much of a drama. And then these are your menu buttons, so you've got home, and then you can flick through the different pages, and that's your action button, and that all appears here on this 4-inch circular TFT display. Adjustable clutch and brake lever, very easy, just on the top as usual. Bar end mirrors, again look the part with this starter bike, easy to adjust as well. They're just on that sort of rocker switch style, so nice and easy. Not massive, so you're not going to see loads, but just adjust it to your height and it's fine. A little bit messy up front and this sort of around the instruments, just in terms of wires and attachments, and there's a bit sticking out here, a bit sticking out there, but overall I guess that's its sort of grungy feel. It's you know, it's a rough and ready Sportster, all American. And that Sportster name, as we already talked about, it's been around since 1957 in various guises, latterly or most recently as an 883 or a 1200, but that was the ye olde engine. And this of course is the completely new Revolution Max engine, 1250. It's actually 1252cc, and it's an absolute peach. The marketeers and engineers at Harley-Davidson have spent a lot of time, energy and budget to create a lot of videos for us to see, to describe all of the elements in the engine and what they do and how they work and what they're made of. And it's fascinating for a non-engineer like me. I can barely put a piece of Lego together, let alone understand what an engine does. But it was great to see just how much effort has gone into research, development, effort, and they've come up with a beauty. I rode the Pan America, which was lovely. You get a really good feel for that new engine, and then in this it really does come alive. They call it the Revolution Max 1250T. The T on the end stands for torque. We've talked already about the differences between the Pan America engine and this, and it's obvious and true and easy to recognise the fact that this has a lot of torque down low. It's got a real beefy, grunty boom from the bottom end. And you can make the adjustments in terms of throttle connection and traction control interference, cornering ABS, and so on. You can change all those in the modes. So there's 3 preset modes: rain, road and sport. I am in sport at the moment. You can tell because it says S outside of the display. There's no MPG, both average or current, and there is, in the cruise control setting, there's no way of telling which number you've got it set at, obviously, unless you're doing that number. But if you go for an overtake, or if you slow down a bit, you can't tell where you were. So you've got a reset button, so you can just get it back to that number, but you can't tell what it was. Little pinickety things, but you know, £13,995 is a lot of money. It's a big increase on the old outgoing Sportster, but you know, this is other than the moniker, other than the name, it's nothing like the old one. The old one being the sort of almost at the entry level into the Harley-Davidson range. Certainly the lower capacity version, that and the 48. Got to say, I got on this bike with the mid-mount controls, and your feet do feel high, or your knees certainly feel high, but then I think you're going to need that because of the ground clearance. It does transform the riding position, in my opinion, positively. I don't think you can have a Sportster, you know, Harley are keen to tell you that it's got, you know, sporty credentials, it's there for performance. Yes, the engine has got the performance. It's certainly a vibey, talky. When I say vibey, I don't mean it's got lots of vibrations. I mean it's got character, it's got excitement. It's, in fact, one of the engineers who's over here in the UK was describing to us earlier at the presentation that they almost dialed out too much of the character of the engine with balancer shafts and with the different coatings and materials that they use for the components in the engine. It almost became too smooth. I mean, yes, you've got rid of that potato-ness of the old Harley, but they almost left with the challenge that they had to dial character back into the engine. It's certainly the smoothest Harley-Davidson engine I've ever ridden, and it's got a lot of go about it for this type of bike. Like, calling it a Sportster is, you know, clearly it's more about its DNA, it's more about its family tree, its history with that particular name. Again, they were quick to tell us that it's been around for longer than Camaro 911 as automotive brands. You know, you can't help but feel as though they're clutching onto a straw a little bit. Could have been called something else, because I mean, look at the size of that front tyre. Earlier on the previous bike with the forward feet controls, your inner thigh is differently positioned. So because you're further out with your feet, it actually means that that rear cylinder gets it's worth mentioning, but it's not as dramatic as I might make it sound. It makes your inner thigh a little bit warm. On the Pan America, I noticed a big difference between road and sport modes. There's less of a difference on this, but still noticeable, and it's good. It's good. I'm all about aggressive riding. If you've got something that's got sporty credentials and 120 odd brake horsepower and all the torque that it does, which, by the way, is more than a Panigale V4, then I'm all for getting into sport mode and hustling a bit. Actually, it rolls into a corner quite nicely. The way it banks over that use of the tyre. Let me see if I can demonstrate into this one. Let me see if we can roll. Yeah, it doesn't sort of collapse or crash or fall in, or there's no. Yeah, it's a nice gentle roll. It steers better at higher speed than it does at low. In the town earlier on, yes, road mode gave you a better or an easier throttle connection, and the clutch isn't particularly heavy. They've engineered it so you've got it's easy to feel. Also on the downshift, if you shift it down a couple of gears from speed, it's not going to lock the rear, it's not going to upset the engine. You haven't got that sort of vibe or that wobble. Oh, I much prefer this seating position. On the feet forward one, it felt much more like a cruiser, so you were sort of stretching out to the bars. It felt as though it didn't really know what it wanted to do or be. You know, you were sitting in one type of position for one type of motorcycle, yet you've got all this performance, theoretical performance, yet this feels a little bit more, this is what it should be in my mind. But it's nice to have the options. It's funny, again, from a big engine like this, and from a sort of a traditional Harley-Davidson feel, you would expect almost like a clunk or a more obvious movement or feeling from the gear lever, but it's actually very soft. Even with the tiniest bit of water strewn across the road, by having no mudguard at the rear, your back is going to be soaking. So we've got an 11.8 litre tank. It's not very big in terms of its dimensions either. You feel as though you're quite perched up on top of the bike. It's only a 755mm seat height, I think it is. So it's not overly tall. And the tank, you kind of feel like you're sitting over it. It's not very big. With the claimed MPG around 43, you're not going to get more than about 100 miles out of a tank. Not that you'd know what MPG is on this thing, because there's no MPG gauge. That, ladies and gentlemen, the distance in the mist and rain, possibly, is Manchester. And that's where we're heading. I'm going to bark on about this point, but these mid-mounted foot pegs, foot controls, not only are they, for me, more comfortable, but they give this bike its proper purpose. I don't believe you can talk about sporty performance and have feet forward pegs particularly. Well, you see, I say that, but then you look at the likes of the Diavel and ex-Diavel from Ducati, and then you look at the Rocket 3, noodles of power and torque between them. So yeah, I've shot myself in the foot, haven't I, with my theory. But on this bike, if I were buying one, I would definitely have this this layout, this foot peg layout. 13,995, it's a lot of money. Well, everything's relative, I guess. But what you're paying for here is the technology, you know, with your cornering ABS and your cornering traction control, and your Bluetooths and your IMUs and that incredible engine, Harley-Davidson, and everybody who worked on this engine in Milwaukee could be, or should be, very, very proud, because it's a real peach. And in 20 years time, when we're all riding around on electric bikes or alternative powered bikes, I think it's the likes of this engine that's going to be remembered. There we have it. Thanks so much for joining me on the ride. The new, just shy of 14 grand Sportster S. This particular one here is the black one, so it's the standard price, 39.95. This one's got the screen on it, which is a little bit extra. And my preference, as I said to you on the ride, was to have that mid-mounted peg position, just because I felt it was a little bit more comfortable. I was more at the front of the seat, leaning into the bike. And I also think that for its character and what it stands for, it feels like it fits the term Sportster a little bit more. But that's a £680 option. However, there's a fair chance that you can haggle with your dealer to have them fitted free of charge. But in my opinion, well worth the upgrade. Yes, I missed the MPG display, but it's no deal breaker. Yes, I missed that extra bit of mudguard at the back, especially here in the UK. There's no guarantee it's going to be beautiful Californian sunshine all the time. I would also like to try the tyres a little bit more in sort of more sketchier conditions. Certainly, we had a lot of rain heading back to where we are now, back to base on the motorway section. I felt it quite slippery with these big new Dunlops. Aside from that, that motor is fantastic. I talked to you about it on the ride already, and I will not stop barking on about it, because that Revolution Max 1250 T for torque, of course, is very, very strong, and it's the work that's gone into creating that is sensational, and it really does bring the bike to life, and it's a really good way of taking that Sportster name onto this new generation. So all in all, well worth a test drive. Get out there, get down to your dealership. We're thinking that it's going to be around about October, just in time for the nice British winter. Anyway, thanks again for joining me. Hope you've enjoyed it. Don't forget to comment or leave any questions in the section below. And we'll see you next time. Cheers. Well, my bum was definitely keen for a bit of a stretch. Just a bit like riding a bobber.